Hello dear crypto friends, and welcome to today's video in which, again, as every day, we are taking a look at the crypto market. And normally we start with Bitcoin. Why do we always take so much care to analyze Bitcoin? Well, because Bitcoin leads the market. So if Bitcoin rises, the whole market rises with it. Every altcoin pumps. But in times of a brutal bear market like this one, all altcoins also dump. There's rarely ever an altcoin that pumps in a Bitcoin bear market. So therefore, it is of course extremely important to understand what Bitcoin is doing. And we have our long-term weekly trend channel as every time. For the new viewers, this is the logarithmic trend channel that I always use as a basis for all my analyses. And what do we see? Well, we have been in a brutal bear market since November 2021. Since the Fed decided that it would be an amazing idea to just brutally raise the interest rates, and stocks have gone down, Bitcoin has gone down, the whole crypto market has followed, and we are now in the oversold territory of this long-term chart, where we can see that Bitcoin is not often in this lower territory of the long-term logarithmic chart. It was here in the lower territory, it was here briefly in the lower territory in 2020, and now it is again in the lower territory. So the lower territory is normally always a good time to load up on cheap coins. If you still have money, that is always the problem, right? Still having money. I mean, it goes down, you buy, it goes down, you buy, it goes down, you buy, it goes even further down, you still buy, but at some point, normally, we just run out of money. So if some people still have money, I congratulate them. Even I'm running out of cash, I have to be honest, friends. So we want to understand how long this thing will still drag on, and I have drawn an ominous line here, which we all hope will stay a fictional line, because this is the worst case scenario in my opinion, okay? If this line doesn't hold, if the moving average of 290 weeks turns out not to hold, then I think we really will visit this white line here. So we will revisit the tops set in June, July 2019 and in August of 2020. Okay, that is my opinion. If the current low does not hold, if the moving average 290, which has acted as solid support in March 2020 and in August 2015, if it would have existed, it would have been perfectly hit in August 2015. So this is a super insane support, and if we break through this support, friends, I'm really sorry. I see the next support really as low as at around 13,000, 12,500 until, from anywhere from 12,000 to 13,700. That is like, or 13,800. That is the area where I see Bitcoin dropping if we really go below this moving average of 290 weeks. What does the RSI say? I mean, the RSI. Does it even make sense anymore to look at the RSI? I mean, the RSI is at ridiculously oversold levels. It is making new historical lows that Bitcoin has never ever before reached in its entire history. You can see that even in 2010, so the entire 12-year history of Bitcoin, we have never been so oversold as we are now. The RSI, friends, is now at 25.7. The previous record lows were at 28.79 in December 2018 and at 27.9 in January 2015. So it's quite crazy. And in the monthly chart, friends, the monthly doesn't look too much better. We are even more oversold than we were here in 2015 and in 2018. We are also lower than Bitcoin was ever in its entire history. And if we go away from the RSI and just purely look at the candles, this candle close was really not nice. I mean, sorry, but this is not a nice, beautiful candle close, okay? This is not what we would call a beautiful candle close, and it reminds me very much of the one in November 2018 and what happened afterwards. We went sideways about 4 to 5 months, okay? We went sideways 4 to 5 months, and here the same in January 2015, and we went sideways for 8 or 9 months. So We can now be looking, if we are lucky, at 3 to 4 months sideways until we recover in some form. Or worst case, we look at a scenario as in 2015 where we go sideways the entire freaking damn year until mid 2023, friends. Now, some people might rejoice and say cheap coins, wonderful, I can buy for a long time. That is of course clear. If you still have money, congratulations. Now, of course, we know that Bitcoin strongly follows the stock market. This is a recurring topic here on this channel. And the stock market, we do know it follows especially strongly the Nasdaq. What is the Nasdaq doing? The Nasdaq is in this wonderful falling wedge structure, still in this falling wedge structure, still printing a hidden bullish divergence. Nothing has changed here. Lower lows in the price, higher lows in the RSI. Nothing has changed here. I still think this should normally be a quite clear break to the upside. Maybe the CPI data that is being released on the 13th of July will trigger an up move. So maybe until the 13th of July we still go down-ish. And then if the CPI reading is good, if on the 13th of July we get a low inflation reading, then pump. If on the 13th of July we get a high inflation reading, then friends, dump. That's as simple as it is, okay? The 13th of July will be a very important date because the CPI data will decide what the Fed is going to do with the interest rates. High CPI reading means high inflation, means the Fed is mandated to continue aggressively raising the interest rates. Low CPI reading, low inflation, the Fed could pivot earlier than we expect, and they could say, okay, inflation is going down, everything looks fine again, and they could return to not hike as aggressively anymore and maybe even stop hiking completely. And that would of course in turn create a nice rally in the market. So the 13th, I think, will be a crucial moment here, and it will be make or break for this falling wedge here, and we will decide if we will go lower. Now the VIX, friends, if we just look at the SPX, the S&P 500 is basically just doing what the Nasdaq is doing. There's not so much difference here, but the VIX, the volatility of the S&P 500, says that, oh man, look, there's here a structure in the making. And every time this has happened, every time such a triangle has happened, we can go back, you know, every time this happened, we got a huge spike. Look here, a huge spike in the volatility, or here this very long-term falling wedge structure from 2015 to 2018, and then a huge spike. And spikes, friends, unfortunately mean dumps. So there is, in my opinion, just looking at the VIX, a higher probability for a final dump, for a final capitulation moment, before then we go down again, and that will of course mean we pump again, we go towards higher prices. So just looking at the VIX, I think there is not such a low probability, friends, that unfortunately we could be looking at dumps in July, which would support the thesis that the CPI reading for July will still be high. But that is just, of course, an indicator, the VIX, and the VIX is not necessarily a fail-safe instrument. It could also happen that we don't get a spike and then we just slowly start dropping. It's not out of the question. It doesn't happen often, but it could happen, right? So the VIX is not like this 100% fail-safe instrument, but it indicates that, friends, a dump, like a scenario like this one, so a dump in the S&P 500 and consequently also a dump in the Nasdaq. So such a scenario unfortunately is more likely, and then at some point we resume the uptrend when the Fed will finally pivot, when inflation finally will come down. Of course, for Bitcoin, friends, that means that Bitcoin will just follow what the Nasdaq is doing, because Bitcoin has become, as we have noted in the previous video, has become the little of the stock market, and especially of the Nasdaq. It follows it like on every move, and this has started especially after 2020, as we can see. Before that there was some kind of mild correlation, But after 2020, I think it has gotten absolutely ridiculous. If we overlay this, we can see that the Nasdaq is making tops when Bitcoin makes tops and is making lows when Bitcoin makes lows. So there's like a brutal, hilarious correlation where I'm just laughing all day long. That's how funny it is. No, actually I'm crying, but whatever. So Bitcoin is still showing no signs of a reversal, friends. I don't see clear signs of a reversal. If we go into the daily chart, what is Bitcoin doing? I mean, what the hell is this? Best case we can hope for, I said last time, is that we get some kind of scenario like this one, where we just get such an ugly, drawn out, weird, sideways down-ish scenario until at some point then the Fed will rescue us and says, we are going finally to pivot. And then the stock market pumps and Bitcoin also starts pumping. I don't see any other scenario now where magically Bitcoin is just like, woo, just from here on going upwards. I don't see any scenario, especially now because Bitcoin has become so hilariously dependent on the stock market. And on top, the foolish SEC, our favorite corrupt agency in the USA, has also, of course, what have they done? Of course, they have rejected the Bitcoin spot ETF. What else? At least Grayscale is suing them. That is, of course, quite hilarious. And I'm quite happy that they are finally, someone is suing the SEC, and more people should sue this corrupt agency, in my opinion. But of course, this is really bad for Bitcoin. This is bad for Bitcoin adoption. We want Bitcoin adoption to go faster, right? Because if we look at Bitcoin's number of unique addresses, friends, we can see that we are still below levels of the 2017 top. The number of active addresses is still below that area, and we are still below the area from May 2021. It is rising, we see it is rising, but a lot slower than it was rising from 2010 until late 2017. So the adoption is not as fast as we would like, and this of course is a setback. So the only chance I see now that Bitcoin brutally pumps, and consequently let us look at the total altcoin market. Okay, that is the total altcoin market here. The only scenario I see that the altcoin market now suddenly starts pumping, okay, now suddenly starts from here onwards pumping, is when suddenly, out of a sudden, like a huge miracle happens and the world economy dramatically improves, or inflation dramatically goes down and the Fed pivots brutally and says, okay, we are not raising interest rates anymore. This is the only scenario I can see where something like this happens. But as it looks now, we should expect something like this here, where it's really ugly for a long time. And then in 2024, when the next Bitcoin halving comes, we can see major improvements happening. And of course, at some point, this ugly stock bear market will also be over, right? So friends, good times will come, even if it stays ugly for a longer period of time. But unfortunately, this is entirely not in our hands. This depends now 100% on macroeconomic events, and unfortunately not anymore so much on adoption because it's too slow, and not so much on the magic ETF that is also not going to save us anytime soon. And of course, the dollar index is still pumping like a crazy bastard. That is also clear. At least we are still continuing to do this bearish divergence, still continuing to do one in the daily chart. So I assume now that the dollar index will make a new high here. It will break through here and probably will reach a new high, but most likely it will still be in a bearish divergence. Most likely. I'm not entirely sure, of course, but it could happen. So this would be a good sign, because a bearish divergence in the dollar index, so higher peaks in the price, lower peaks in the RSI, would of course mean that this sucker is going to roll over, going to start falling soon. And that means we are going to get nice pumps in the crypto market, because the dollar index and Bitcoin are inversely correlated. Now the 2-year government bond yields have started rolling over, which is a very good sign, friends, a very good sign. So that again speaks more, in my opinion, for the scenario that we are getting pumps sooner than we might expect, because the 2-year government bond yields are an important metric for the Fed to make their decision on when to raise interest rates. And if the 2-year government bond yields suddenly now collapse and start falling, as we see here, they have been following a long-term falling trend channel here, right? And they have broken through, but this could have been a fake breakout. And we also noted in the previous videos that the government bond yields are having a nice bearish divergence, friends, a really nice bearish divergence with lower peaks in the RSI and higher peaks in the price, as we can see here. So this is a good sign, and if they collapse now, if the government bond yields go down now brutally, this will drag down the dollar, and this will of course lead to nice pumps in the stock market. So if on the 13th of July on top the readings for the CPI are lower than expected, if the inflation is lower than expected, then expect nice pumps on the 13th of July. So this is a date we should keep track of. And of course, I will make daily updates on Bitcoin and the crypto market. I follow the 2-year yields, the dollar index, the NASDAQ, the SP 500, the VIX, everything. Because that's the only way that we can understand what Bitcoin and the crypto market are going to do. Friends, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you found the information helpful, please like and subscribe, because I'm doing daily updates on Bitcoin and the crypto market. Have a nice day, have fun buying cheap coins if you still have money, and see you in the next video. Bye!